I'd like to introduce some of my guests, if you don't mind. Two of them are daughters of Johnny Nettleship. Many of you will remember Johnny. He was the sports editor at the Tribune, and he was in the crash and was a survivor, and came back from the hospital in Toledo, Ohio. I think he was one of the last ones to come back to San Luis Obispo. Is that right? So he was badly injured in that. So it's an honor to introduce Johnny's daughters, Jane Maxwell and Ann Brooks. Would they please stand, please? I'd like to also introduce John Nettleship's old sidekick, Eric Burdick. Eric over here. He was the sports editor. Eric became the sports editor of the Tribune for years and years. And I'm especially pleased to have Dorothy Harden with us today. Her husband, Coach Sheldon Harden, was aboard the plane when it crashed. He became a national hero as he returned to the crashed plane several times to rescue those students still trapped inside. Could we give Dorothy, would you please stand? Could we give her a nice round of applause, please? Also in the crash was Coach Howie O'Daniels, and in attendance today is his son Pat and Pat's wife Carol O'Daniels. Would they please stand? The 1961 Cal Poly yearbook was given to Cal Poly athletics from Ed Jorgensen's estate. His daughter Karen Kyle, unfortunately she couldn't attend today, but she has turned several of these books over to the athletic department. We appreciate her doing that. And I wanted to read you just a little bit out of the yearbook, the 1961 El Rodeo yearbook. Some of you remember El Rodeo. Probably everybody in this room remembers El Rodeo now that I think about it. And it was on in the middle of the book, and it says, "They shall remain forever young." And then there's quite a bit of reflection about the students and student athletes and family. Husbands were killed in the crash. And then at the last one, the last paragraph was, "We can ask ourselves many questions as to the whys and hows of life and its complexities, but we arrive at very few answers and even fewer conclusions. One fact is definite, however. To all students, faculty members, and friends of California State Polytechnic College, these men will never be forgotten." Whoa, I knew this was going to happen. Pardon me. I just wanted to just welcome all of you. A lot of friendships were made back during those days. This is a picture of a team that I took out to the men's colony. The prison was outdoors. We played the prisoners, and up on the upper left here is a fellow named Curtis Hill. He was killed in the plane crash. And he was in one of your classes, a great guy, one of the greatest athletes probably to ever attend Cal Poly. And down here is a very young Bob Bostrom, very, very young. And myself, and then Don Roberts is up in the upper left. Does anybody remember Don Roberts? He was the student body president at Cal Poly back in the day. But the point of this is that it shows how closely knit we were. Students, faculty, staff, and students were all sort of together in this thing at Cal Poly back in the 1960s. And we had some great times and great games and great fellowship. I wanted to thank Polly Harrigan for arranging for the this remembrance meeting to be videotaped and placed in the Cal Poly Library archives. If you'll look at, you'll see the cameras are on, and hopefully some of you will come up at the end of the meeting. We're going to have time for several of you to give your remembrances of your experiences in the 1960s when the crash went down. Let me ask just this question real quick, and would you look around the room? We'll see how many hands go up. How many of you were on the Cal Poly campus in 1960? Would you please raise your hands? Well, that's a good turnout. That's about 15 or 20 people that will be, hopefully they'll reminisce a little bit and share a couple of their experiences, and if they had the students in their classes, that kind of thing. I wanted to also thank our library archivists, Ken Kenyon and Teresa Taylor, for bringing over some of their materials from about the plane crash. They're up here in the front. They've got some books, and they've got some of the news releases that were scattered out throughout the United States. And if you have a chance, maybe after the meeting, you could come up and have a look at that. I wanted to thank all of you for your attendance today. I hope you had an opportunity to talk a little bit at the table about those of you that were at the Cal Poly. But you know, all of you were all over the country, so I would imagine almost everybody here in this room, even if you weren't on the campus, had heard something about the crash. I mean, it was such a huge event in its day. So you've had a chance to talk, I hope, at lunch a little bit about that. I would like to tell you that we're going to have some remembrances shared by some of those in attendance. And we have several speakers today, including a survivor of the crash, Dr. Gil Stork, who was a student football athlete aboard the aircraft when it went down in Toledo, Ohio. He will speak about his memories of the event before and during and after the crash. Gil, would you mind coming up here? Could we give Gil a nice round of applause, please?
Thank you very much, Don, and for the opportunity to come and have lunch with you today. I was going to say it's nice to see old friends, but at 60, I just turned 65, and now I figure I am one of those old friends now. So it's nice to be back together with a lot of former, very important people in my life. Many of you have influenced who I am and who I have become as a student at Cal Poly. Well, Don asked me to kind of share some reflections about that particular part of all of our lives that can't do anything but shape who you are and what you become and what you have the opportunity to do. I had absolutely no intention of going to Cal Poly. I grew up in San Luis Obispo, and if you grow up in San Luis Obispo, your mission in life is to get the hell out of town. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I was actually 2 weeks from going to the University of Pacific, where I was going to play football up in Stockton. At that time, UOP was quite a football power, and they had a fairly known running back named Dick Bass, who later played with the Rams, and so that's where I was going to go. About 2 weeks before I was leaving to go to Stockton, they had some kind of a calamity in terms of their ability to fund scholarships, especially freshman scholarships. And so they were, this is before the letters of intent days. And so you just kind of went up there with a suitcase hoping that there was still a locker. And anyway, to make a long story short, I didn't go to UOP. Tom Lee got wind that I wasn't going there. He gave me a call and said, why don't you come to Cal Poly? So I went through the very rigorous entrance requirements in those days. And that afternoon, I was enrolled and I was on the football field. And it was, despite the history of what happened, it was the best choice I ever made in my life. Number one, because I was a mathematics major, I attended a college which had a very strong math program which supported a very strong engineering program. And because I wanted to teach and coach, I minored in physical education, and